Okay, so we're back on Luke Thomas's weird political channel where he infuses MMA and politics. Makes all these videos about how Trump gets an icy reception, which he said he didn't think would happen, and he's saying about how Trump is getting all this free promo from the UFC. But here he's saying Trump gets an icy reception. But he's saying about how his free promo that you couldn't pay for, Trump's getting all this free promo from the UFC, and it helped him get elected. He claims that the UFC is what got Trump elected is very stupid, but and here he says you got an icy reception, and here he says about Rogan regrets Trump. Says UFC is starting to regret Trump, so we're going to talk about this one. The UFC is a right wing sport. We're going to go into it.
To watch if it was recorded or listen to that lecture that you gave at the university. I think that'd be something that a lot of people would be interested in. Funny you mentioned that.
Okay, this guy Samoa Joe seems a bit like a plant. Asking Luke about his lecture. That's behind. I've watched 10 minutes of it. He put out 10 minutes, but after 10 minutes, you have to pay for it. So he seems like a bit of a plant, but I'll trust that he's a Luke Thomas fan. I'll trust it, but it does seem like a bit of a plant. He calls himself Samoa Joe with that wrestler's icon. I mean, doesn't seem like a real account, but I'm not gonna put that on him. Let's go.
Mention that. Yes, there is a place right here. My Substack. I posted it
I know
there.
you mentioned it. I got an icon here that you can scan. That's a bit weird. It seems a bit planty, doesn't it? That he has that up on the top of the screen at the same time when the guy asks that.
In full. You can go and see for yourself out there. Can I tell you, I cannot believe the reaction that caused. Mostly because it was behind a paywall. So like,
Yeah, because he's making a big claim of it's gonna have a big reaction. You're saying UFC is right wing, the right wing spur. There's a bit of a bit is a spur and saying it's right wing. It's a big claim.
The amount of people that were reacting to it, like 98% of them never watched the lecture. So
Because it's behind a paywall. He charges money to watch it. That's why they couldn't watch it. You expect them all to pay for that? Be given up for free, you know?
that's funny. Well, let me just talk about that for a second. There's been 2 times recently I've been embroiled in controversies in the last couple of, well, I don't know, weeks, but I don't know, relatively recently. One was when I went on Demetrius Johnson's podcast and I said, MMA has become, right wing, and the dumbest people got the most
Here he goes. He insults people who give him negative criticism. He says that because of losers and stuff, doesn't he? Everyone who disagrees with Luke is an idiot.
mad about it for the most anodyne comment that is quite obviously true, right? Like to anybody.
It's not an anodyne comment, and not obviously true. You have to prove that. It's a big statement. It's a sport where people punch each other in the face, saying it's right wing, and it's not really anodyne because you're saying to people, you're saying that it's not for people on the left, it's not for people on the center. If you're a fan, you have to be a part of MAGA. You have to support Trump.
With half a brain, it is obviously the case. Yes, the people who are against this idea can't decide. They can't decide if I'm wrong and it's not true, or that it is true and then there's no point in talking about it. They actually can't. They can't reconcile their differences. But that was one. That was the first one, and then the second one was this one. When I posted it on my Substack, I put a link on Twitter. I didn't think anyone would even care. Who wants to watch?
Not many people care, but they do care. They care because you're going down a weird path, going down a weird political path. You're politicizing everything. And you're supposed to be like an MMA journalist, which is okay, but you're going down a weird path where you're like attacking like the fans all the time. And he's playing into a crowd of people that don't watch MMA anymore. Because I've looked at all these comments, of people saying that they haven't watched since 2022, they haven't watched in years, and he's playing to people that don't watch the sport anymore and want a reason to not watch it, to not care about it. Bit of a weird thing.
An hour-long lecture about the connection between MMA and right-wing, the political right, I should say, on a Substack. But I mean, I just figured people would yeah, whatever, go fuck yourself, there might be a few snarky comments or something, but I didn't think it'd be big. It turned into this referendum. It turned into this referendum from the dumbest people understanding.
So you shouldn't critically think, is the UFC a right wing sport? They should just accept it. They shouldn't go, They shouldn't go, hey, is this true? I don't think this is true. They shouldn't even think about it. You should just accept whatever Luke Thomas says because he's like the most smartest person in the world. And if you don't agree with him, you're unwashed. You're a chud. You know, from this guy. Shouldn't even think about it. You shouldn't argue with him. Just shut up and accept it.
Nothing about what they're talking about, nothing about how the world actually works, nothing about the truth of the matter, just nonsense in every fucking direction.
If you released it for free, maybe they get more. They'd be able to understand your points. You know, instead of like putting it behind a paywall. And not many people are going to pay for that.
Truly, the great unwashed had strong opinions about something.
See, there he goes, calling him unwashed. You see that's his any negative thing. I guess he just says you're unwashed. He can't take any critique. Cannot take the little of like all his videos. Or half of them, he's talking about how they're unwashed, how they're chuds. You know, that's like half his videos saying that they're so dumb. He doesn't put in his videos. Doesn't actually even put many of his points in his videos that he's arguing. He just says this. He goes, and if you disagree, you're unwashed. That's all he does.
Guys, I don't know how to tell you this. Anybody who thinks anything like to me, if you're on the political right and you see how far UFC is on the political right, like I would imagine you'd be happy about that, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you be happy?
Exactly, they should be happy. People on the right wing are saying that's a bit weird what you're saying. They should be happy about it because the way you're saying it or like what you're trying to say, it doesn't make much sense. That's why they're not happy about that. That's why they're not going, oh yeah, it's right wing. We love it. So you should. Why don't you think about stuff like that?
Happy about the fact that the sport reflects your values in that way, or at a bare minimum, it's a safe place to have this kind of crossover into the political world that you like represented. That's how it would seem to me, but they seem and what's very funny is I want you to pay attention. I'm sure you've seen various threads of people talking about it. Look at how animated and angry. I am literally, just by posting, hey, here's my lecture, watch it. I'm literally hurting their feelings. I'm hurting their feelings. Like
This is what someone does when they get negative criticism on the internet. They start going, I hurt your feelings. So angry. No, they just seen you. They said, "Oh my god, that's dumb." You're someone I'm supposed to respect, like a respected MMA journalist, and you're saying dumb stuff. And then they left. They go eat some stuff, and they don't. No, and they're going, "What did Luke say?" What people do when they get negative criticism on the internet, they start making this big thing where, "Oh, he must be so with his life." This got negative criticism. You have to engage it. You can't just. They just don't want to engage with, so they start saying there's something wrong with the person themselves. When you get 98% negative comments probably, except on like videos like this where you go, you're like, oh no, audience who don't watch MMA anymore.
These people are wounded in a way. And it's really quite strange to me because it's like, one, you could just not watch. That's one. Two, you could also watch in order to have an opinion.
No, I'm watching.
And three, what on earth would be the argument that MMA in the modern context has not turned into a vector for right-wing politics, and then more to the point, that there at least hasn't been some kind of long-standing connection. Now, I spend the last...
This is connection because Trump recently in the past years has been working out to events and he's right wing. That's pretty much the only connection you can have. That Trump is right wing and he works out to events. But I've said this before, no other Democrat president has probably even asked that. You have Megan Thee Stallion twerking on stage. They don't ask for the UFC fan base, which you piss so high and you say, oh, Trump, this is why Trump got elected again. You say because he walked out to UFC events. You got a lot of centrists and people on the left, like me, who watch this and go, I'm not right wing. I'm not watching this for right wing. I'm watching this for good. That's you. That's your interpretation, and no one agrees with it. Almost no one except like the people that don't watch MMA anymore. That's the only people. That's the only people in your comments. They all say the same thing. I don't watch MMA in years. I mean, I'm uninterested. That's the only people that agree with you.
few minutes of my lecture in the spirit of academic nuance, discussing ways in which the that combat sports is not now and has not been.
He keeps saying to watch his full lecture. You gotta be on the paywall. I have to pay for it. I've watched the 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes, that's for free. Is you asking like girls saying, "Oh yeah, there's one girl that watches MMA. Do any of you train MMA?" You know that's like 5 minutes of your lecture saying, "Oh yeah, who's no girls? Oh no, one girl." That's 5 minutes. You're not included any of your points in it. For 5 minutes, you talked about nothing. Then the other one, you're just setting it up. You never gave us more than that, so we can't watch it to get a full thing.
Right leaning. So, for example, Muhammad Ali at age 25, avoiding the Vietnam draft, this would clearly not fit any kind of, any kind of right wing politics. You could look
Okay, so he pissed Muhammad Ali avoiding the draft on the left side because the Vietnam War we know is bad, so it's actually left side. Who was the president when Muhammad Ali avoided the draft in the Vietnam War? This is in 1967, and Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a Democrat, and who was the president before him, a Democrat, JFK. So there were Democrats in office who were doing that to Muhammad Ali, making it so if he dodges the draft, he loses his boxing license. And Muhammad Ali himself, he's right wing. He's the Yaqub guy. He's the guy, the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam guy who thinks white people were created by some kind of black devil. That's who Muhammad Ali is. He thinks that's Nation of Islam. He thinks white people were created by some kind of black scientist devil with a big head. I'm serious. You can pull this up. So you're saying Muhammad Ali's on the left wing now as well? He's obviously not on the left wing.
at various left-leaning socialist or communist countries that have contributed either wrestlers or boxers or some kind of sporting excellence. And you could say, as those are also sports washing things too. Those obviously don't hold any kind of political project, or sorry, they don't hold any right-wing political project there. There's also been MMA clubs designed to boost minority enrollment in all kinds of ways that it can be constructed that don't match right-wing politics. Like, that is a true thing. But the amount of evidence the other way is
Nobody said because Muhammad Ali dodged the draft. It's not right wing. That's no one's argument.
significantly greater, long-standing, to the point where we're talking about 1930s Brazil and Helio Gracie being a part of the integralist movement, which was a openly, like, they're not even, it wasn't, I know some people are like, oh, Trump's a fascist, and there's like, well, no, he's not. It's not
Yeah, Brazilian integralists. That's like guys with a sigma symbol. They were fascists, but they're not the same kind of fascists as Europeans. They got like the core flag. Guess you can say the Gracies were attached to them. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that's on like the 1930s though, innit? And then like because one guy was associated, and the Gracies even were associated with some Brazilian fascist party. You don't even know what politics in Brazil was like in the 1930s. That made them even like that. So we can't even go there. We know about like all like the European ones, but you don't even know what politics were like then. That made them go, I like these guys. Because they were like a Catholic religious kind of movement. So the Gracies, you're saying this just because you can't say Trump worked out, so it's not right wing. Trump's going to end his presidency soon, and then what after that is ever like Republicans going to work out? We don't even know. The relationship probably ends there. That's where you have to go all the way back there, don't you?
not one of those. Like, this party was openly fascist, and movement at the time based on European fascism, as a matter of fact, at that time. And they believed that all of society should be basically run by Catholicism, both the laws and then kind of like the social mores and everything.
That's why it's different though, because they want there to be run by like Catholic principles. That's not Hitler wasn't he wasn't Catholic, he wasn't Christian, was he? It was a bit different.
Should basically be like a Catholic movement, but it was like openly fascist in that way. Helio Gracie was part of that. He was part of that, and the ways in which the Brazilian, for example, political right, the way in which they actually influence the American right and American politics more generally, and I show this in the lecture, is through jiu-jitsu and it's through MMA and these back channels that it helps create, and these other networks that it helps create for political influence. Like, it's literally the conduit both between the North American right and the South American right.
So he's saying Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms have like back channels to create fascists. Is that what he's saying? So Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms, you went to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym for a week, didn't you? And you broke your toe, and then you left. Was that like an excuse because they try to make you go fascist or something?
As well as a way for for electoral gain domestically.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you
why he
name
has
it. Like,
something against Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms because he broke his toe and he left after a week. And that's why he's bringing it up because he's like, it's good I never went back to training because I would have become a fascist. You know, it's like a word soup though. He's not really saying anything. Like a movement from the 1930s, like connecting to today, and it's not. You're not connecting it.
any number of different ways, it's just impossible to ignore. And again, I've seen some people say, okay, fine, we admit it, the sport is right and it's always been right leaning, who cares?
Nobody said that to you. Nobody said that to you. Nobody said we admit it. Nobody said we. No, you never even argued with anyone for them to say we admit it. Because we see the way you react to people who disagree with you. You start saying, "Oh, they don't wash their shirts." You don't. You obviously do not. You do not read comments because it gets to you, and we can see that you can see how much it gets to you when you always complain about the people that did it, even though they're anonymous. You don't even know nothing about their lives. You never responded to anyone. You never debated with anyone. Then he said, "Okay, okay, you got me." You never did that. So don't say that. Don't say, oh, "Okay, we admit it then." Okay, you never did that with no one. You haven't debated with no one.
Well, I care, number one, and the reason why is because it's not a question of, in general, which way has everything kind of leaned. That would not be an observation that's necessarily all that interesting or very difficult to make. It's the second argument from that, which is, to what extent do the present actors weaponize or utilize it for political ends, right? So 15 years ago, when the UFC wasn't doing stuff like this, you may have had a lot of the same kind of composition of who was there or what kind of sympathies were there, but it wasn't, they weren't using the sport to activate or recruit or and otherwise shape those forces through the sport. Now they are. Now they are. It's a deliberate choice by the people in charge of the sport to use it and pivot in that direction. And specifically, and this is the point that everyone needs to understand, in the 2024
This is a 10-minute video. Why don't you show evidence of this? Why don't you just show some evidence instead of Trump working out? That's all you got is Trump working out. And then Dana turned up at a rally one time. That's your thing that people are trying to, that the right wing is trying to take people into the right wing directions, like the fascist direction, whatever. You're not including any proof. You're just saying it. Just saying it. And all you got is you can't. And you just can't. You can't put up 20 times a video saying, "Look at Trump working out. Look at him working out again." You can't do that. That's what you just expect. And if no one agrees to you, oh, they just need to take a bath.
election, the UFC was one of, if not the most consequential mainstream actor in rehabilitating Donald Trump after January 6th. After January 6th, actually his polling numbers are now at the same level, but certainly up to, relatively recent history, his worst polling numbers came after that. Right, he was persona non grata. He did one speech in CPAC in February of that year, and then he wasn't seen for months. Do you know where they saw him for the first time? UFC 264. UFC 264 was the first time he.
Come on, but it's not. People were like probably like caught 50-50. They didn't see Trump. As you say, you said Trump tried to destroy democracy on January 6th. They didn't see him work out a UFC event and go, well, okay, that's cool then. Try to take over the country, but that's just great. Who cares? I just seen him work out a UFC event. Okay, that's not how people's minds work. Stop doing that. They never saw him do that. They never saw that and thought that way. They just went, oh, there's Donald Trump. If the economy gets bad, I'm going to vote for him again. I'm serious. That's what they think. They won't watch him and going, okay, so I guess none of this matters. Like you try and point out.
Came out, and they gave him that whole fucking treatment. And they did it when he was convicted of the felonies in New York. They did it after Jack Smith indictments. They did it constantly whenever he was having PR problems, to have him received as some kind of hero, both I think to boost his spirits by Dana White's own admission, as well as to give him this kind of propagandizing campaign rally event in ways in which you couldn't pay for that anywhere in the world to get that kind of a treatment. For the
No, as you said, you can go out there, you can get booed. That's not. It's not. Oh, it's so good the stuff you pay for. You can go out there and get booed. It would have made him look worse. And you've even said he got icy reception. So it's not something that you can't pay for. It's a big risk that he's taking to go out there. And it does good. And it does good for the UFC because they say, look at all the famous people we got working down here. It's not them saying, oh, yeah, rubbing their hands, going, oh yeah, we're gonna get him back. Not them doing that.
mainstream institution, which the UFC was at that point and still is, to then be able to give that to you. Guys, the reason why I talk about the connection between the UFC and the political right is not to annoy the chuds on Twitter who are barely literate, although it does seem to have that effect. It's because it has affected our electoral outcomes in this country.
Oh my god. He goes again when he says UFC got Trump elected. No, they didn't. They didn't get Trump elected. They go with nuts. They didn't get Trump elected. Stop. Stop doing that. What the hell? They did not get Trump elected. The UFC did not do that. The economy, everything else got Trump elected. Joe Biden, they didn't like Joe Biden, so they didn't like Kamala Harris. It was not him working out to a UFC event that got him elected. I don't know why he thinks this so much, but he calls everyone who disagrees with him weird. It doesn't make sense. Ah.
Sport and its premier organization leaning in one direction to get and I'm putting this euphemistically, polarizing candidate, because he wasn't even a member of political office at that time, back into power, who then unleashes hell on the world. We should probably trace back how he got there. And when you trace back,
UFCs are so big to this guy's this whole world, they just can't see past that people don't elect based on who works at the UFC events. They don't do that. They probably didn't even see that, to be honest. They probably didn't even see him work out to the UFC. The majority of people that work that have voted for him. So no, we're not going to trace it back and go, okay, how did he get elected? Okay, so came to the UFC, he got elected after, so of course, no, because you're delusional. You've gone pure delusional right now.
how he got there, a big contributing factor is the white.
It's not a big contributing factor. It's not. It's not a big contributing factor. Probably very, very small. Tiny. They're not saying or anything. It's not a They forgot about January 6th. They forgot about all this policy. They forgot about it. So why wouldn't they forget about whether he worked out to UFC and whether he's friends with Dana White? If they forget about January 6th, they forget about that like it's nothing.
Whitewashing, sane washing.
Look, he's changed his tune. Before he was saying, well, maybe it could have been, he plays that line in his video. Well, you could say that, like, and now he's gone out and saying it. He's saying that's why I think he got elected. That's why I think he got elected. And he said that before. He said with January 6th, he said, whether you think it was them trying to destroy democracy or like a coup d'etat, or whether it's just a riot. Then later in the video, he goes, he tried to destroy our democracy. He's gone full radical. He's not like you're trying to play like he's just like a normal guy. He's a radical now. If you're all the way on the left, you're so far left, you can't see everyone else who's not that on that exact plane with you. Even if they're leftist, if they're not on that exact plane, there's something wrong with them. They're crazy, they're fascist, or whatever.
From the Ultimate Fighting Championship. That's just a fucking fact. That's just a fact.
Not a fact. It's not a fact. You're making it up.
So I don't care if people had like right-wing views and then they voted every 2 or 4 or however many years.
You do care if they have right-wing views because you call everyone who disagrees with you and Wash, you call them that. You do care. You care a lot, and it's very obvious.
And the sport kind of functioned as the way it did before, where it wasn't how the sport itself operated. But now it is. And it's not just the UFC. Because of what they did, they gave license to actors all the way down the food chain to take up similar kinds of causes. And they did. And they did. And it affected electoral outcomes in this country. That's why I talk about it. That's why I made a speech. They gave license to actors all the way down the food chain to take up similar kinds of causes. And they did. And they did. And it affected electoral outcomes in this country.
It didn't affect the election. I'm sorry to tell you, it did not affect the election. It did not affect the election. I'm sorry to have to break it to you. It didn't. Him being at a UFC event did not affect, and that's basically that's what you say. Like that's not even me like misrepresenting you. That's what you say. You say that him coming out to UFC events is why everyone loves him. Why everyone did love him enough to give him a vote. It did not. Nobody really cared. And you're saying that, like he's given like special treatment. Nobody else asked to work out to a UFC event because they don't. Because all the research teams are going, why do you want to do that? They say this. They say there's no point. I just do a rally instead. They don't even think about that. And you think you know more than them. You think you know more than the people who actually behind the scenes doing all the consensus data. You think you know more than them, and you don't. You're an MMA guy. You're an MMA journalist. You stay in your place. Stay in your place, and like you're not on that level. And it's clear. And you can tell he's been invited to campus because he's all these big words. Using all these big words because you're trying to seem more like Mr. Political Guy Analyst. You're fake smart. You're very fake smart. You're not smart at all.
That's why I talk about it. That's why I made a speech about it. And by the way, I didn't just show up to fucking campus and was like with a megaphone. Hey,
Yes, you did. They didn't even know who you are. None of them even watched. I think they fewer if UFC fans. None of them even trained. They invited you because you're a guy, you're a leftist guy who says about how right wing has infiltrated sports and they're all leftists at the campus. And they went, oh great, oh great, another radical to radicalize these youth in college. You did just walk into a campus with a megaphone. You say you got invited there, but you know why you got invited. Not because you know much about MMA, just because you're on that spectrum.
everybody, listen to me. You got to hear my stories. No, I got invited. I got invited. They invited me.
Got invited. But like you're some special mind. And this is why he calls like everyone who disagrees with him idiots because he goes, I got invited to do a lecture at university with my PowerPoint. And now you think you're smarter than everyone. And everyone's like,
to go do it. So I did it. It is amazing to me how simple this is to understand and how assiduously, I can barely call them my critics, but the lampreys that try to
give him some respect. Give him some respect instead of going, I can't even call my critics. Well, no one could be a critic of an MMA journalist. Like a low tier MMA journalist. A middle tier. Nobody can even criticize you now. Is that how big wig you are? Nobody can criticize you. You're on that level. Did you even go to school for journalism? We don't even know. We don't even know. All we know is you got grey hair in your 20s. That's all we know. And you broke your toe in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu class, you broke your toe. That's all we know about you. The funny guy on your podcast that kept all the viewers was BC. That was the funny guy. You were like the straight man. You're like a policeman. Like there's no human in you or anything. Like BC was the funny guy. And you'd always be like, oh, he's telling jokes again. And everyone could see it. And that was the funny part of the podcast. He get you mad because he tell jokes. like Brendan Schwab like references. And he left you to go on to do bigger and better things. You lost that Showtime contract. You're in no position to talk down to anyone that's saying they can't even criticize you. Everybody can criticize you. Everybody.
Who hang around me cannot understand these basic ideas. It's very, very simple. And yet they have this dedicated inability to learn.
If it's that simple, it's probably wrong. If your idea is that simple, it's probably wrong, to be honest. About such a deep complex topic, it's probably wrong if it's that simple to understand.
the issue. So, with that in mind, if you'd like to see it, it's on my Substack.
Let's go to his comments. I remember when these hypocrites said they wanted politics out of sports. I haven't paid for a UFC event in over 12 years. I haven't even bothered to illegally stream one in 3 years. That's how bad it's gotten. There's people that haven't even watched in 12 years and haven't even watched a stream in 3 years. If Germany existed today, Hitler would be on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about kettlebells. Really? These dudes are hypocritical, cowards, straight up cowards. UFC is the only option for MMA and it's become a right-wing propaganda machine for the fake regime. I stopped watching in like 2022. Why would I go back? I mean, these are guys that stopped watching like ages ago. And the people that agree with you are people that don't even watch MMA anymore. Why is there no one watching you who watches MMA now and going, yeah, Luke, I watch now, and yeah, it's gone so bad. UFC is not a right wing sport; it's become a fascist spectacle. You know, people they're delusional. They don't watch it; they just watch clips and see Donald Trump work out once in a while, so they go, "Ah, this is why I don't watch anymore." Anyway, this is his university lecture, which you can see I did watch. Only 10 minutes of it because I'm not going to pay for it. And see, for like 5 minutes, he talked 6 minutes even. He talked about like doing crowd work like a comedian. Then the next one, he didn't even get into it. Then it stops right before he even says anything.